It is time for us to talk about your second assignment, and I can hardly believe that we're already at this particular point. I want to preface this by saying that this assignment is really cool, and that you're probably going to have a lot of fun doing it. You might struggle with it a little bit at first, trying to figure out, what you're doing, right? But once the ball starts rolling, I think you're gonna like it quite a bit. When I did it last time, I had a lot of really cool projects, and I'll probably talk about a couple of those as I move forward. But unfortunately, I don't feel like it's worth my time to share them with you, right? And that's mainly because I've shrunk this project considerably. Last time, it was a longer, substantial project, and I just didn't feel like that worked out in the context of the class, and so I ended up shrinking it considerably in this iteration, right? And so if you want to look at a model, Emily Martin's The Egg and the Sperm is your model, right? I'm asking you to do something pretty similar to what she's doing in that particular text, right? So that's why I had you read it, right? So anyway, if there's one thing you've learned from our discussion over the last couple weeks is that language theorists are pretty convinced that it has some impact on how we think about the world. And of course, if it has an effect on the smaller things about life, like our sense of colors and directionality and so forth, it probably has an effect on the big stuff, like politics, philosophy, argumentation, so forth, right? And that's the basic idea behind George Lakoff's idea of framing, right? Frames are these linguistic structures that affect how we think about the world around us, right? And so basically what I'm asking you to do is to look at how an issue is framed in a set of media of your choice, right? And so you can pick really whatever media you want to, right? You can look at social media, which I think is a very appealing topic for this project. So you can look at maybe, what people are posting on Twitter, or you can look at Reddit posts or Instagram, that sort of thing. You're more than welcome to look at that stuff. You can look at a television show. I had someone who did a really interesting project with a conservative television show on, I think it was on InfoWars last year, right? So you could do a television show of some sort. You could do a movie and maybe look at the media discussion surrounding the film. That might be another interesting approach to take, right? So anyway, so the first thing you got to do is you got to pick a body of media to look at and look at an issue that you want to explore within that media, right? So to give you some examples, these are some projects that I'm suggesting here, right? So one thing you could do is you could look at the Nextdoor app, right? I don't know if you've heard of Nextdoor before, but it's like a neighborhood community application, right? And it's known for being for featuring a lot of cranky boomers, I think is its reputation, right? And so there's a lot of arguments that appear about things like housing in particular in the Santa Barbara area, and arguments sort of fly back and forth on those particular topics, right? So what you could do is you could look at those posts, a body of posts, maybe a couple big discussions people are having, and look at what frames they're invoking in the when they're making their arguments. So that might be one approach that you could take, right? A lot of you might be kind of interested in the coronavirus and how the media has been approaching those particular topics. Obviously, we have a big debate about whether to reopen certain states and that sort of thing, right? And so you might look at some threads on Reddit to see how various groups are framing that particular topic. So you could look at maybe the Donald and see the Donald and see how Donald Trump supporters are framing it. You could look at the politics subreddit, which is often quite liberal, and maybe look at the approaches that they're taking there, right? So you could go ahead and explore how those issues are being framed by those different political groups, right? And other things that are a little maybe less charged. One thing that was popular over the last couple of years is minimalism, particularly the tidying up movement of people like Marie Kondo, right? And those arguments often invoke frames about race and class and gender, and all those sorts of different things, right? And so you can maybe look at like how those minimalistic experts sort of invoke those things in the language that they use in their media posts, right? You can also maybe look at some video games. One video game I really like is Soma, and I've talked about in a conference presentation before about how it frames science and how science works and that sort of thing. And so you could also maybe like pick a good video game to look at and explore the framing that's done within that text, right? Now, if you're wondering of like what a body of text that you could look at, There isn't like a definite number I have here. You can really, do as much as you want, or in some cases as little as you want. But to, give you an idea, I think if you're like looking at Reddit, right, you might look at like the top 15 to 20 posts, most popular posts that are made on a particular topic, right? Or you could look at like, the top 20 most popular and 20 most controversial threads on a particular article or something like that, right? If you're doing like a television show, like a political television show, you might look at like, maybe 2 or 3 examples of the television show on a particular topic and look how they're exploring a particular issue. If you're looking at like something longer, like a video game, I think that one text might be enough. Like a video game is like an 8 or 9 hour experience. So if you do a video game, I'm expecting a lot of you probably looked at it before, that you've consumed it before, so you won't have to necessarily replay every little bit of the thing, right? If you're doing a movie, you might do the movie, and then I would recommend looking at the media discussion surrounding it. So maybe like, the ideas of 3 or 4 popular critics and what they say about the film. That sort of stuff, right? So try to keep it limited, right? You're going to find really quickly that analyzing these texts is going to take you some time, right? And so the more limited in scope that you can make it, the better, right? In addition, I am expecting you to include some scholarly sources, but I don't really think you need to include a lot of text, so maybe like 2 scholarly sources is what I'm looking for. A lot of your projects are going to be like really niche, so like if you're looking at discussions of the coronavirus, you might not find anything directly on the media discussion and the scholarship, right? But you could certainly find related things, right? So there's media discussions of the SARS epidemic and other stuff surrounding that, so you might be able to pull from those things when making your arguments, right? So hopefully that helps you out. And of course, if you have any questions about like how to do something, like if you're interested in doing Reddit and you want to know how to sort things based on popular and so forth, just go ahead and let me know.